and the rest of the panelists. But good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second webinar that the Women in Public Works Committee is hosting. This one is titled Making the Public Works Sector More Attractive to a Diverse Workforce, which is aptly timed with International Women's Day coming up next month. My name is Megan Finney, and I'm a board director of the IPWEA New South Wales and ACT. Firstly, I acknowledge the Gadigal people as the traditional owners of the lands which I am hosting this webinar from, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I recognise their deep connection to country and value the contribution to caring for and managing the land. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all work today and are joining the webinar from, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. We are all spread across the state, so if you are comfortable, can you please write in the chat and share where you are from so we can see where everyone is located. Now, a bit about IPWEA New South Wales and ACT. It is a division of the Institute of Public Works Engineering Australasia. What we do at IPWEA is advocate, support and promote public work engineering through advocacy to all levels of government and industry groups, through training and professional development, and through events. As part of my role as a director, I chair the Women in Public Works Committee, which is a group of industry representatives that meet every quarter to tackle the challenges facing women in the industry and to collaborate regularly to initiate, develop and implement projects that will create change within the industry, support women and who work towards equality for women in the sector. Now, if anyone is interested in what we do or other initiatives we do, please feel free to reach out to me or anyone at IPWEA and they can put you in touch with me. And if you're interested in joining the committee, we welcome any new members as well. Now, one of the initiatives from the panel is hosting webinars of interest, and that's to help progress the diversity and representation across the industry. But another initiative that has come from the committee is our luncheon for International Women's Day. And this year we will be joined by Minister Jenny Atkinson, the Minister for Regional Transport and Roads. This event will celebrate the achievements of women in engineering, local government and public works while fostering connections and championing the future of women's leadership in our industries. We will also be presenting the Women in Leadership Awards, recognising remarkable women who have achieved extraordinary success within their organisations, and also those women that are really out there promoting and advocating for diversity. This event is on Thursday, the 6th of March, and there are limited tickets left for the event, so we would love to close the registration next week. So if you want to know more, I've just seen that Laura kindly has added a link in the chat, but also reach out to anyone from IPWEA or head to the New South Wales website. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Liesl, one of the committee members, and she's going to introduce and this webinar to you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan, for that introduction, and welcome everyone, and a special welcome to our panelists this morning. Thank you so much for giving up your time to talk to us this morning. We're looking forward to the conversation. My name is Liesl Boyd. As Megan said, I'm a member of the committee for IPWEA's Women in Public Works committee. And in my day job, I work for New South Wales Public Works, so working with people in the public works industry all across the state every day. So really interested to hear some of the comments from our panelists. We've also got the chat operating, so if you have questions that you want us to ask, Megan will be looking after that for us this morning, and we'd love to hear from you as well. I would love to introduce the rest of our panelists. We might go around the room and just give everyone a couple of minutes to introduce themselves and tell us where they're joining us from today. Mel, I might start with you.
Thanks, Liesl. Morning, everyone. So Mel Slimming here. I work for Narromine Council. I'm the Director of Infrastructure. So obviously I'm based in Narromine today. And I guess my background is I'm a chemical engineer by profession, worked most of my career so far in the water industry, but now have sort of branched out and am rapidly learning civil engineering, being in charge of obviously roads infrastructure and you know, the other civil infrastructure that you have within a council. So yeah, looking forward to chatting more today.
Excellent. Thanks, Mel. Shara, I might throw to you.
I am Shara Cameron. I am based in Bathurst at Charles Sturt University. So I'm one we call me a senior engineer in residence, which means I work in academia teaching, but I have a background from industry, and my background is as a water engineer.
There you go. Thanks, Shara. Trish.
Thanks, Liesl. So my name's Trish Ball. I'm a Director of Heritage, Environment and Planning within the Advisory and Planning Group within New South Wales Public Works. My background, my undergrad is industrial design, so I have more of a design background, then moved through with a Masters of Planning. So I manage a team of heritage architects, conservationists, and environmental scientists and planners within Public Works. So very broad skill set in my team.
Fantastic. Thanks, Trish. And Ailish.
Hi everyone, my name's Ailish and I'm a project manager. My background is actually a Bachelor of Architecture before I swiftly moved into more of a project management space. I've also done some postgrads in project management as well as arts and curatorial studies. I work with Liesl. Actually, Liesl was my hiring manager, I believe, for Public Works, and then more recently have moved to Powerhouse and more in that arts infrastructure space.
Thanks, Ailish. I might start with you, Ailish, then actually. What attracted you to this industry? How did you get involved, and what did you find attractive?
I think it was quite specific to where I was living and the role that I went for. That first attracted me to this industry. So I was living in Port Macquarie, regional town, and there weren't a lot of exciting opportunities for, I guess, a young woman or a young person freshly coming out of a bachelor's in that area. And I applied for a graduate project management position with New South Wales Public Works. And I think the main things that really attracted me to that role was I'd come out of architecture and it being really design focused, and I felt my skill set was more around that, you know, focusing on communication, client focused roles and stakeholder management. And that was something that was really attractive working with Public Works. Also the opportunity to work on projects that are, you know, for the community was something that was really, really exciting, and working on a really diverse range of projects from, you know, road upgrades to cultural institutions. That really diverse range was a really exciting prospect.
Excellent. What about you, Trish? What got you involved in this industry? You've come from a different background, done some consulting work, worked in government. How did you become involved?
Yeah, it wasn't really a deliberate choice, I'll be honest. So I guess I started out in automotive design and engineering. So I was lucky enough to get a 3-year grad rotation at Ford Motor Company when we were designing in Australia and building overseas, but got to travel. And I guess my life was, I could see the writing on the wall a little bit with automotive and design going offshore. And I wanted to still be in the realm of having, I guess, adding value and through design. And I just called, I saw something, I think it was, I was doing some reading about what I could do post-grad, and somehow I ended up on the phone to the head of town planning at UNE, and he was just an interesting guy, and he sort of sold it to me, and from there it was what I was meant to do. So I guess being able to influence increase livability in people's lives and make decisions every day that could make their lives better, I guess that was pretty much what steered me that way. While still being able to work anywhere. I think that was really important, given like automotive was really niche and it was quite limiting. I think planning sort of led me into that space of I can do this anywhere and have an impact. So that was pretty much my choice.
So there's a bit of a theme coming out already in terms of community involvement. Very good. How about you, Mel? What attracted you to this sort of industry?
Oh, it's funny. I was just listening to both Trish and Ailish talk, and I feel like those themes of for the community, the diverse work, improving livability. I feel like everyone that I talk to that works in local government, they're the key things that people want. Yeah, I guess similarly to Trish, didn't set out looking to work in local government. As I said, I'm a chemical engineer. Like probably 90% of chemical engineers end up working for the mines. So definitely didn't think when I was doing my engineering degree, I'm going to work for council. as I sort of mentioned briefly before, I started off my career as a grad at SA Water. So really enjoyed working for SA Water, really enjoyed working in the water industry. And then I had an opportunity to move regionally to the Central West. And I honestly had no idea what I was going to do for work. I was a little bit concerned that, what am I going to do? Am I going to be able to grow? And a water and sewer manager job was available. And I thought, oh yeah, this sounds fun. I don't know it. I don't know what it is. Oh, well, we'll give it a chance. And I guess that's where I discovered the world of local government. I discovered it wasn't just, it's not just people on shovels talking in the street, which is kind of sometimes the impression that people get. I realized there's a lot more happening. Much like SA Water, where you've got the guys on the ground and then you've got the engineers. Council's very much the same. And I realized that I just love it for all the reasons we've just spoken about. There's so many great projects that you work on that directly impact the lives of the people in your community. That's something I didn't get at SA Water. I was state-based, so I was often working on projects that were still great projects, but they weren't directly in my community. Whereas now, on the weekend, I come in and do my shopping, and you walk around and you go, that footpath, I did that. That drainage system, I did that. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty rewarding. So yeah, I don't know how we get the word out there, because I think local government is a little bit of a hidden gem.
Undersold.
I think it's undersold. I think people don't realise some of the great work, because obviously when stuff goes wrong, council's often the first one to blame, but we do a lot of great work. And I guess that's what keeps me working in the industry, because I just genuinely love it. Yeah, it's good.
Fantastic. Great to hear that enthusiasm. That's wonderful, Mel. What about you, Shara? How did you become involved in becoming an engineer and working in the industry?
I think I did out of high school, very 18-year-old, what am I going to do? I think in year 11, 12, I liked maths and science, all the normal things, bit of a nerd. What am I going to do? Didn't want to be a scientist. I wanted to do something applied, was kind of how I described it back then. And I think that still is true, that I don't think I knew that it was make a difference and use my skills, but I know that is kind of what I think I was looking for. And so I discovered, I'm sure someone told me about being an engineer. Didn't really know what they did till I looked into it, and then chose civil, went on to become a civil engineer. I think I wanted to, like most people when they go into civil engineering, thought I wanted to be a structural engineer, till I tried it one holidays and discovered I really didn't want to be a structural engineer. And I then specialised in water and worked in industry for various places in Sydney, and then we moved to the Central West, where I'm based now, and worked here for a few different private organisations, but doing a lot of work for council, I think, as is always true in regional areas, in the water space. And yeah, I can drive around and point to all the things I did, describe the modelling I did on that water channel through the middle of Orange, and all my children with such stories. And then nearly 10 years ago, I had some time out of the industry between having my third and fourth children, and I saw a job advertised for, or even read in the paper, that Charles Sturt University in Bathurst was going to start teaching engineering. So I gave them a call, and they actually were advertising positions called engineers in residence. So they were looking for people from industry. So I didn't even have to pretend I was a researcher, thankfully. And so I got to come, and I really have discovered I love teaching, and I love I get quite involved in the outreach side of things, and so working with high schools to try and tell people about engineering, because that's one of the challenges of our industry.
Yes,
is getting the word out there. And yeah, I really love spending time with our young people in courses, teaching them what engineers are, because even when they start, they really don't know what opportunities are out there, and things like public works. A huge number of our students end up in public works, but many of them, I think people in smaller areas often are more aware of what public works jobs are. But I know I grew up in Sydney, and I don't think people there are very aware of what happens. It just sort of happens. And so trying to teach young people about the different opportunities available as engineers and help them understand what will suit them and what their motivations are, because they really don't know themselves very well when they come in. And so, yeah, I really love that about my job now.
Awesome. Yeah, Sharon, I'm interested as well. Like, we're obviously talking about how to attract a more diverse workforce. And that often starts where you're like at the coalface of attracting people to do the courses, to know what jobs are available. What does your diversity look like at in the university, and how do you go about attracting a diverse student body, I guess?
Yeah, that's still really tough, and unfortunately the statistics are still really low. So we have anywhere between 10 and 30% females each year. And we've only got small student numbers some years, so sometimes that has looked like one student in a year, and that's really tough for them. And sometimes it's looked like 5. So to attract them, we do a lot of work with high schools. We've hosted the Power of Engineering event quite a few times here, which is for female high school students to really show them what engineering can be and really change some of those stereotypes. And I think one of the reasons I get so involved in our outreach is I'm constantly aware of changing those stereotypes in everything we do. So whenever we run an activity, which, you know, most high schoolers have been made to do STEM activities, I'm really mindful that we try and show how it will make a difference to people in those activities. So we're not just building a tower out of sticks, we're building a tower out of sticks for this Lego person, or we're building a dam wall because of the little houses. I use Lego quite a bit, little Lego houses that are down the stream, because otherwise they get flooded. And so really trying to bring what we know makes a difference in attracting females, which is involving people and showing them the difference it makes.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really great. Thanks, Shara. Ailish, I wanted to throw to you on that point. So you're probably the closest to your university days between us. How, if you wanted to go about attracting someone like yourself, a young, ambitious female, to that sort of industry, how would you have gone about attracting yourself?
I think that, speaking from my personal experience, it's, you know, acknowledging all of the background educational work, but focusing more, and this is more from a project management role perspective, more so than, you know, design and engineering, but focusing more on those aspects of the role that's stakeholder management, it's communication, it's working with the community, it's that end-to-end overall project delivery, focusing more on those as the key, I guess, objectives and drivers as the role as well. And then obviously being supported by that, you know, construction or architectural engineering background. I think that's what did attract me most to the role, and what would attract a lot more women, because women, you know, have such great stakeholder management, you know, skills, emotional intelligence, communication. Those are all really the base level, I believe, skills of all women. That's quite attractive when looking at a role like that. So it's less, oh, it's this big scary construction industry, but it's breaking it down to, oh no, I can do all of these things. You know, I can be client forward, client focused. I can, you know, manage multiple community groups and community stakeholders. I guess the only other thing I would say as well is, I mean, that's more from a entry level, how do we attract more women to the industry, but I guess maybe more midlife or a bit later on as well, is, you know, that flexibility too, providing a bit more flexibility for women maybe re-entering the industry or coming into it a bit later.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And Mel, how do you guys go at council? We've spoken before around the challenges of attracting people in a regional area specifically. I'm proud to say that most of us on the call here are from a regional area and love working in our regions. What does it look like for you in Narromine?
Look, it can be really challenging because you don't have a huge pool of applicants a lot of the time. So it can be challenging to get qualified staff coming in. But I was only talking yesterday with my HR manager and just saying that my team is my team right down to grassroots, including and then up to engineers and managers. We're basically completely full. You know, I think during COVID it was maybe a bit challenging, but we're finding more and more that lots of people are wanting to come and join council, and we're getting a lot of people who worked at council and then maybe left for greener pastures that are now like, hang on, council's actually pretty good, I want to come back. One of the things that is working quite well at the moment for ground staff or like outdoor crew is we're bringing them on as casuals. So we have a really quick recruitment process. We basically, if someone hands their resume in and we think, yeah, this person will work, we just put them on as a casual and offer them a position as a casual. We're not tied to them if they end up not working out. There's not a lot of cost. We kind of just bring them on, and then after 3 or 6 months, it's basically a trial period. And then after 3 or 6 months, if it's working out, then we'll make them permanent. And we're really working on developing our guys right from the ground up. So lots of in-house training, and we've also just taken advantage of the state government's cadet program that they've rolled out. So focusing on trainees and cadets. So we've got 3 cadets starting next week. So we're very much about taking locals and upskilling them, because generally in Narromine anyway, if you're local, you're not going anywhere. So if we give you a good career progression and a good training basis, you're going to be with council a long time. It's always interesting to me when we get the emails at the beginning of the year saying these are the anniversary milestones you've got coming up. So we've got people on 30 years. Last year we celebrated someone who's been at council for 40 years. It just says to me, like, we're obviously doing something right. And yeah, just trying to retain people. But look, it is challenging. Look, I was talking last week about to a few colleagues about the water space, like water engineers, for example, or water operators. You can't find someone who's been trained in the water industry because they've already got a job as a water operator. So unless we're pinching them from another utility, which isn't really ideal, you're not going to find someone that's trained. So you have to start at the beginning and train them up internally. So yeah, it's all pretty interesting, big challenges, but I definitely in our area, times have really changed, and in the last 6 months, we've definitely been building up to full capacity, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Was just looking at the stats before that have been released by DQ about the water industry, and seeing that they've got still got 33%, 20% vacancies in engineering roles. Yeah, up to 14% operational roles are vacant across the state in water utilities. So you guys are obviously doing something right, which is wonderful.
Yeah, we're lucky, but hopefully we're doing a few things right too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mel, I want to stay with you if that's okay. You're obviously, you've reached a director level role in local government, working in a very traditional male dominated industry, and still probably have quite a large male workforce under you. How is that going? How are you managing most of the time being the only woman in the room, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think I've got out of a team of about 60, I've got 2 females. So it is pretty male dominated. Look, I honestly have only experienced challenges about 3 times in my female. Less so these days, but historically it was more because I was young than because I was female. Sometimes people, struggle to see, back when I was in my 20s, like, how is she managing us? It's not too bad. Like, I find that my leadership style is very much lead from within. So I'm more than happy to get my hands dirty, get on the tools, get down. I'm always at the depot just interacting with people. So I think it is a little bit of a change for them initially, but I've never really faced too much backlash. I'm very big on, just following through what I say that I'm going to do and not over promising. Yeah, I've built up a pretty good relationship with everyone in the team, and, I definitely don't see the sexism that perhaps some other industries have. Perhaps I'm fortunate, perhaps it's just my approach, but yeah, it's pretty good. Look, there's a couple of guys in the outdoor crew, obviously like older generation, that probably feel a little bit uncomfortable having a female boss, but you just push through it. If I have encountered it a couple of times, and I'll just deal with it head on, like, just let's not leave it as the elephant in the room. Let's talk about it. Righto, we've both said our piece. Now we can kind of move on. And in the couple of instances where that's happened, yeah, I've found that quite freeing. And I think the guys kind of, oh, right, I've been called out. That's not okay. Righto, well, we'll just push forward. So yeah, look, it's challenging, but I probably wouldn't have gone into engineering if I couldn't handle being the only female in the room, to be honest. Like, uni might have, like what Shire was saying, uni was quite male dominated as well. So you kind of get a bit of a taste for it there, I think.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's great to hear that things are changing, even in regional areas, which can be slower to adopt change.
Yeah.
That's great to hear, Mel. Wonderful. Trish, I want to throw to you in terms of your career progression. How have you found dealing with, you know, being often the only female in the room, and I guess standing your ground, but still staying true to yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess what Mel said as well, I kind of resonate with. It's never been something that's been a big issue, and I'm probably fortunate. I think probably key to point out, when I started in automotive, one would think that was very male dominated, but it seemed to be, everyone was very highly technical, really skilled. It was kind of put to the side. I probably experienced it a little bit more when I stepped outside and I did some work in banking. But I think it's just early on, you make a decision to bring your whole self to work, and you just see everyone as your colleague. So I was fortunate to be on a really good program when I started out my career. So I had really good mentors, and I think that gave me a lot of confidence, you know, that I had a seat at the table, and also leaders that sort of challenged that perception of, you know, Trish, you don't always have to say yes to everything. Part of being a leader is, you know, pushing back and getting others, you know, motivating them around you to work together. So yeah, minor challenges, but more or less along the way being personality challenges. I think getting really good mentors and really enjoying the work you do. For me, it's been being able to make an impact. And when I'm doing that kind of work and working with people that are really, you know, they want to be there for all the right reasons, it always works. Beyond that, I think it's just also women, you know, banding together and building each other up and not seeing anyone as a threat. I think and even probably more so in leadership, I've come to learn that I don't know everything. I rely on my team, you know, to fill the gaps and for me to also be honest when I'm you know, I've moved more so into the heritage space in this role, which I'm learning, and I'm really appreciating the skills and talents within my group. So, you know, calling that out and sharing my expertise, you know, more so with process and lean management and all that kind of stuff together, we're going to get somewhere further. So I think that's really helped me. But in terms of being a female, like Mel said, it's never really been an obstacle to me. Perhaps I just don't see it like that. But I think it's also, there's healthy masculinity and healthy femininity, you know, in every job. And I think if we kind of recognize that, then, you know, we can all only grow.
You mentioned finding mentors, Trish. How did that happen? Were you seeking someone out, or yeah?
I think when I started, I was really fortunate, and I think I can't stress enough how, you know, a graduate program, you know, can really help. So you sort of fostered people around you mentoring you. But there was a couple of women when I started out at Fort that sort of almost took it on as like their duty. So just even having regular coffee catch-ups and, you know, going for a walk at lunch and just having them sharing their stories with what they went through and how to get there, like even down to the point of, you know, I had a really good mentor early on, and she just said, look, Trish, when I had my family, I said, I want to work 5 days a week, but I want to finish at 3 o'clock. And, you know, this was probably almost 15 years ago. So, you know, hearing those stories and people sharing that, I think it's a responsibility as a woman in leadership to share that kind of information with young people, to empower them to, you know, that can really work.
Fantastic. Yeah. What about you, Shara? You spoke before that your student cohort would mostly be male. How do you go about that? What has your experience been being the only female in the room and in front of the room?
Well, I'm lucky. I have always had 2 or 3 other female colleagues in the team of academics here, and so that, you know, what do they say? The 30%. Once there's 30% in the room, you don't feel so alone, and that becomes. So I think that's made a difference in our workforce here. But definitely, when I was in industry before, I think in almost all my roles, I was the only female engineer where I worked. I think I often described it as I didn't face outwards discrimination or harassment or anything, but I always felt like the only female in the room. I know the worst was of this when I was on a construction site as a young engineer for a few months, and I was treated well, but I was treated very differently. So back in the day when the toolboxes still had inappropriate things in their lids, they would shut them when I walked past, but they shouldn't have to shut them. Shouldn't have to be aware that I'm walking past as opposed to someone else. And so that's what I disliked. And leading our female students, and I also have 3 teenage daughters, I actually think in some aspects we're seeing a bit of a backward step amongst young people and young males, with the opposite of what Trish just said, but with toxic masculinity coming through with young people. And that's affecting our female students. We've had very little issue within our cohorts of students. They're very close, and we find our female students, once they get past the first few weeks of being very aware that they're amongst a few females, they get very comfortable. And we've only ever had one real issue with, I suppose,
where you had to step in.
Where we've had to step in. But on placement, that it's been not that great. And we've had quite a few issues with our students, which has really surprised me. Because as we all have just said, we haven't faced those. So many of us in the industry haven't, but our young people are facing really blatant sexual harassment. And so, that's been a big shock, and we've working really hard to support them and to step in. And I think quite often with young engineers or young students are supervised by young supervisors. And although companies now have all the policies in the world, they're not always implemented that or trained that well to even recognise what's going on, because things can be so underhanded. So really working to make sure we ask the organisations where our students are going, what training are you doing with your staff? It's no good to just have a policy, but if often it's only maybe slightly above a graduate who's supervising these cadets. What do they actually know about how to recognise sexual harassment? And I think the other challenge, which is with students, but also I think you'd find the same with young people in industry, is how do we prepare them for what they don't know they need to be prepared for? And we don't want to tell scary stories to our young people, because we want them to become engineers and we know they can go on to have great careers, but there is quite a possibility that they will face some issues. And how do we prepare them for that without scaring them off? And that's something I've wrestled with of, you can't tell terrible stories because you will scare them off, but you also can't send them out unprepared for recognising what, low-level harassment might look like, for how they respond to that. And so really thinking those issues through. We make sure as a female staff that we have really close relationships with our female students, and because of low numbers, we can do that. So we step into that mentor role before and then help support them to also find those in industry. And I think that that's important, that people have someone to talk to. And so I'd say the same with, any female who's in industry. And I often think we don't think we're ready to be that person. So if you're a graduate working in the public works and engineering areas, you might think, oh, I'm the baby. But actually, there's quite often someone who's less experienced than you or younger than you. It's not always age. And you can start to become that person for them. And so starting to look for those opportunities and realising that you have more experience and wisdom than you realise is something really important for everyone. You don't suddenly get it when you turn 30, 40, 50, 60. You will always have something to give someone newer than you.
Thanks for that, Shire. And I guess mentor is such a big word and a bit of a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot, but oftentimes it's just being a friend. It's just being there for someone and being a support system. So
absolutely.
And Alicia, I wanted to throw to you on this one. How have you seen mentors in your career? Have you found people? Is that something that's been a part of your journey so far?
Yeah, I've actually been really lucky to have 2 really amazing male mentors in my career so far. And I think because my first male mentor was when I first entered the university, it kind of made me think, you know, you can do anything I can do, you can do. He really championed me, brought me on board to a lot of projects, started to let me lead my own projects as well. But no, I've had quite a few positive experiences with, you know, men championing women, which has been great.
And how did you find them? Did that sort of just happen, or were you seeking someone out, or?
I was never seeking anyone out. I was just really lucky that they were my senior, in both instances. They were my senior manager at the time, and they were just these really friendly, communicative people, both of them, that had, you know, great expertise and technical skill in the industry, as well as, you know, really good emotional intelligence. And we just got along really well, and, you know, just went from there.
Fantastic. I just wanted to pause quickly, Megan. Are there any questions in the chat or anything?
Nothing so far, but I'm keeping an eye on it. So yes, please put any questions you have in the chats, or even any comments, and we can discuss them at the end.
Fantastic. Thanks, Megan. Back on that point, I guess when I was a young person coming up through the ranks, I would often feel, you know, I didn't want to bother my boss or other senior people that I found in the industry. I would have really loved to have asked them questions, or, you know, get support. But you often feel that your bosses are so busy and you don't want to bother them or become too much of a pain. Mel, how would you go about if a young person came up to you and asked for a bit of mentoring, or, you know, for some advice? How would you react to that?
I'm in the unfortunate position of being very busy, and also I walk very quickly and with purpose. So I'm just preferencing my response. So I often get people coming into my office being like, Mel, I know you're really busy, but, and my first reaction is, I've always got time for things that are important. So it is something that I try to work on, letting my staff know, just in general, that I always have time, even though I do walk around the office quite quickly. But I've had grads before, and like I said, I'm about to get a cadet next week. And the main thing I do is I actually schedule a time, either every day or at least once a week, that's just me and them, so that they know that there's that time that we have together that we can talk about things. Definitely for people who are worried, my recommendation is don't keep popping in multiple times during the day. Store up all of your questions. For me, I used to tell my grad engineer that I had at Forbes, I used to say, come in after 4. I'm really busy before 4. There's always a million things happening, but after 4 is a bit more quiet. So bring all your questions to me at 4 o'clock. We'll go through all of them. I'll make sure I have time for you, and then you can go away. Obviously, that's not always possible if you've got a burning question. So keep that in mind. And then the second thing I would say is, I actually love people asking me questions, because I'd much rather you ask me questions so you can get on with your work than just sitting being terrified. And I remember doing that as a grad, terrified that I didn't know what to do. And so I just sat there and did nothing. Much rather you come in and chat to me and we can move through it. So don't be afraid to ask. I think when I first was a grad, I was worried that people would think that I didn't know, I was like a fake. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't deserve my degree. I can assure you, nobody thinks that. Everyone starts off, even when I started in my current role, that was only 12 months ago, I was having to ask so many questions. Where do I find this? What's the precedent for that? How do I go about something else? So don't be afraid, just ask. People expect you to ask, but people are busy, so they won't always remember that they haven't told you where the bathrooms are or how to find a specific file on the drive. So just ask. I promise you, no one will judge or think any worse of you.
You're nodding, Shara, as well. Is that something that resonates with you?
Yes, I often talk with our students. We send our engineering students out on placement, and a lot of them go to councils and engineering organisations around the state, and we talk to them in their projects before that. And the example I give is, in 1 year, you are going to be sitting at your desk at your new placement, and you're going to have 1,000 questions. And the reason we give you this project now, where you don't really know what you're doing, is because you will have that feeling of, I've just been given something to do and I can't go ask another question. I've got to. So those skills are so important that we give our students. And I think young people in general, when they're students, when they're graduates, kind of feel this sense of responsibility in their jobs, or don't feel valued, and they feel like the company's doing them a favor by taking them on. They don't realize the valuable resource they are, and even though Mel's busy, she's so glad she has cadets that she can invest in, and they don't often realize that. And so I've had to say that to some of my students, that you need to realize that you're really needed and wanted in this industry, and you can ask for an accommodation that you need, and you're not a difficulty for this organization. You're really important. And so giving them that confidence to realize that even though they're brand new, they're really valuable, and we want them to stick around, and even more so for females. You need to let them know that, so that they can, when people are comfortable and confident, they work a whole lot better.
Yeah. And have you had mentors in your career, Shara? And how did you go about finding them, if you did?
I think in my early career, I really lacked them. And I think that made it difficult. I did find it hard for the first few years as an engineer, knowing what jobs I could even do, and then knowing how to work within them and progress. And so I think when I became in the university, I've been better at seeking them out. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't just happen naturally, and I think definitely I was probably that lacking of confidence myself back then, and not realizing that, or not even knowing who I could ask. I wasn't part of any organization where I could find women outside of my organization where there might not have been any. And yes, you can ask men, but it's often harder. You need to see that they'd be that person, and if that's not obvious, then, whereas I think I would have felt more comfortable asking a woman. But yeah, sometimes it can be hard to find. I think that was a long time ago now. My early career was 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago. I think the fact that we've now got online organisations and things, when you live in Orange, and most of Engineers Australia's, everything was in Sydney until COVID, really, that was the case. There was nothing really to go to or to join in. And thankfully, the internet helped, but I think most of all COVID helped, that so many things have become online, like this event, that wouldn't have happened before. And I think that makes a difference for people, that, even if we see someone's face on a screen, and hopefully these people think, oh, that person could really maybe, give me some input on this, that they'd feel that they could email one of us. I know I've done that in online events more recently. And so I think that that's really opened up opportunities that we didn't have. And I'm really glad about that, particularly for regional, where you can't just turn up. But I think even in, Sydney or other cities, they're so big that you can't even always get to where the events are if you're in a,
No, fantastic. And wanted to reiterate that more than happy for anyone to reach out as part of this process. And that's one of the reasons why the Women in Public Works Committee exists in IPWEA, is to try and support women, to help you find mentors and increase your network. So more than happy to help with any of that. Trish, you mentioned before the importance also of women supporting each other. So as I said, mentor is such a big word, but often it's just finding someone there to support and help. How are you trying to implement that, I guess, in your career, and what are you seeing around you?
Yeah, I guess for me, obviously women are very important, but I guess for me, I'm just trying to create an environment within my team where my door's always open. I think I operate better as a leader when I don't lead from fear. So being open, transparent with my staff, I'm trying to have skip level meetings with all of them so I can get the thoughts and feelings of those, more junior members. And I think for me, I thrive on the energy of the young, of not so much younger, but the more youthful staff, and what they bring to the team, like in the way of technology and progression, and how we can, we work one way this way, but if we packaged up our work differently, how could we do that? And I think by reaching out to them, getting that diversity of thought and collaborating is what I've been really, really encouraging within my team and across different groups. I guess I'm in the New South Wales Public Works Women's Network. So being a part of that is really important. Yeah, but just definitely checking in. And I'm based in Bathurst. I don't have a lot of staff in Bathurst, but I'm based in Bathurst. So there's some young and different aged women in that area. So just having chats with them, and, you know, they might mention something and I'm like, have you considered that? Or in my experience, why don't you try that? Because I think it's just that really casual nurturing that, you know, gives people that accessibility that they want. People aren't, you know, just as Shire said, people aren't as confident to, you know, to step into their space and ask those questions. And probably if I wasn't nurtured the way I was from a young age, I wouldn't have that same confidence. So I feel like it's a little bit my duty to, you know, have my eyes and ears around and set an example. And, you know, everyone's opinion is really important. And for me, a flatter structure of leadership is what I enjoy. So, you know, if you know, if you don't think what I'm doing, you know, it could be improved or could be challenged, then you know, step into your space and tell me. You know, we all have our own lived experience and it's limited by that. So I think if we can encourage, you know, that casual conversation and ability to learn from each other, I think that's exactly the environment I want to promote.
Fantastic, thank you. Ladies, we've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to throw a couple of final questions at you. If you had any advice to give to your younger self, what would that be? Trish, I might start with you as you had the microphone last.
I guess operate from within your values. I think when, you know, really understand yourself, self-awareness is really important. I've often found, you know, when I find myself in a challenging situation, I'm like, why is this, you know, stirring me up so much? And that's often when my values are challenged. And I think if I unpick that a bit, then I can figure out a solution and a tact and lean on my soft skills to communicate, no, I don't agree with that. This is what I'm thinking. So definitely self-awareness. You know, treat people as much as you can with your heart. I think that's really important as a leader, but lead with your head on those more bigger technical decisions. And the art of listening, I think, is something that constantly working on, but I think it's really, really important. Yeah, enjoy the ride and make decisions along the way that, you know, around your, you know, your home life and your career aspirations. And it's not going to be what you think it is, but I think it's, you know, make those decisions that best fit you at the time and know that, you know, growing is important. And when things feel a bit uncomfortable, you're also growing. So that would be my, listen, self-awareness, and enjoy the ride.
The values part that you spoke about is so important, I think, but often it's difficult to actually like pinpoint them, like what are my values, what are really important to me. I've found a couple of really good online tools, and free, some of them, where you can sort of, you know, answer a few questions and it helps you to stipulate a bit more and to hone in on what really is important, what motivates you. So I think you're, and I think we've just done some recent work with my leadership team on, we pulled apart, we picked some values and we sort of discuss what's above the line and below the line within those values. And as a group, I think, you know, when we're choosing to do work or whether we're choosing to grow the business or we've got an issue, if we sort of revisit those, I think it helps us frame our answer a bit better. So I think values are really important. Fantastic. Thanks, Trish. What about you, Shara? What advice would you have given young Shara?
Some of Trish's very much resonate with me. Definitely, I still need to listen more and talk less. But I think definitely around that seeking out people, and I think I just didn't really know what the big world was out there that was an opportunity for me when I was younger, and I definitely would encourage myself to reach out and find people to talk to. Not just imagine this narrow path for me. And being aware that, you know, what is the statistic now that I definitely wouldn't have heard when I was a grad, that we have 7 careers, and obviously we want people to stay in public works, but even within that you can move from different things, and realizing you're not making decisions forever, you're just making decisions for the next little stage.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Shara. What about you, Ailish?
I think I definitely resonate with what Shara and Trish have said so far, but definitely stick to your moral code. is an important one. Your career is not a straight line, would definitely be another one. It's never going to be a straight line. And then I guess my last one is, you know, priorities change, and that's okay. That if your priorities change and, you know, there's something else that, you know, personal life, work life, home life, you know, if the priorities change, it's definitely okay.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ailish. And what about you, Mel?
First one's probably quite similar to everyone else. I have foot in mouth a fair bit. So one of the little quotes, I guess, I like to remind myself of is, "It is better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt." So if you want to take that on board, that's something I try to remind myself a bit, and just trying to bring on that listening rather than opening my mouth. The second thing I'd tell my younger self is back yourself. You've got this. No one else knows you like you do. Look, I've made some pretty crazy personal and work decisions, I guess, in my life. And I know moving regionally, at the time, my parents didn't say anything, but they've since said, like, you know, we could not understand why you were moving to basically the middle of from Adelaide, basically the middle of nowhere. When I moved up here, they're like, you know, we thought that it was a dead end job prospect. We just didn't know what you were doing. And now they look at it and they're like, it was probably the best decision of your life. And I guess when I look back on that decision, I knew at the time, like when they described the role to me, when I looked at what I wanted my life to be like, it made sense. And so, yeah, I guess I'm glad that in that case I did back myself, but that's all I'd say to anyone starting off: back yourself, because if you don't, no one else will. So give yourself that, you know, you can do it.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Mel. Megan, anything in the chat that we should look at?
Nothing in the chat, but I do have a couple of questions that have come through to me. There's a couple of males on the call or on the webinar here, but how do we as a group get more engagement from males on these topics? Or maybe a pre-question to that is that even important and imperative to move diversity forward?
Anyone open to answering that?
Any takers?
It's hugely important. Diversity is more than just about gender, and even more than just about female gender. Obviously, the lived experience of those of us in this room today is more about being a woman in this industry, but we need it to be all kind of diversity because we know it matters. And so it hugely matters that men get involved because they are percentage-wise a massive part of the workforce and even more so of the leadership. And we need it to matter to them. And those that are in the diverse sides of the population in diverse groups need to see that it matters to people in their workforce. And I suppose what we need most is for men to seek out information and to educate themselves. So when we ask you, when you're in the conversation about the female experience, you have some insights and you understand what the difficulties might be, without needing to be educated every time it comes up in a meeting or every time, so that you seek out that. And I think that's true. I would like to see that of men in every part of their lives, but where we're talking today in this industry, we would like to see men care, even if your motivation is business motivated, because it will make a better business. You'll be able to fill those engineering positions or those workforce positions better because you are open to a more diverse workforce. It opens up the number of people that might apply to you, or if it's a more personal one, motivation, but find that motivation to be interested and realize that it makes a difference and you make a difference. And don't be afraid to step up and, come be on the Women in Engineering or Women in Public Works panel. It does matter. We need everyone involved in those diversity.
Very well said, Shara. Very
I
well
think on the
said.
back of that as well, it's really important to lift those men up who are good role models and show that, like, you know, awesome, good masculinity. It's so important to, you know, lift those men up so that younger men, you know, in the industry can have a positive, good role model to look up at. And everyone within that organization, you know, can say, you know, look at these amazing role models that we do have and let's model ourselves off them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the diversity in that is a shared responsibility, 100%. And don't underestimate supporting someone who's a part-time staff member on a trajectory for leadership. Like, they're going to give you so much. So I think nurturing that as a leader and creating an environment for that is paramount for women and parents in general. Yeah.
I think that the thing I'd add to that is also we often discuss women in engineering and public works as a matter of just getting them in the door, but actually it's all the way through that we need this. So, you know, one example at the moment, I need the men that are leading me to be educated about menopause, because that impacts me hugely. And you know, that it can even be an embarrassing thing to say, but I need to be able to go to my boss and say, this is really affecting me, and him not to go, I don't even know what you're talking about, you weirdo, and not be embarrassed by that conversation. And so it actually is all the way through careers, and that's how we make it better for young women, because we make it better for all women.
Yeah. And thank goodness we are living in times that where those sort of things are becoming more and more prevalent. You know, you can now pick up the newspaper and read about, you know, what is menopause, what's going on, what new treatments are available. You can pick it up and read about infertility or about, you know, all sorts of things which used to be completely taboo topics to talk about anywhere. So thank goodness the needle is shifting, but yeah, it'd be great to see that continue. Thanks, Megan. Anything else in there?
No, look, I think that's probably all we have time for. But if anyone does have any other questions that they want to be addressed, I'm sure we can take them and we can put something out to our membership at a later date. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to thank our panel members, Mel, Ailey, Shara, Trish. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Megan, for making this happen, and to IPWEA, New South Wales and ACT. We really appreciate the support of the committee and of these events. Look forward to seeing everyone again very soon. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Liesl. See you
Thanks,
later.
everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.